This program is made possible by grants from Metropolitan Life Foundation and Richard King Mellon Foundation. Tonight, across the country, community organizations and public television stations join forces to combat the urgent problem of alcohol and drug abuse among our nation's youth, the chemical people. Host for these national television specials is First Lady, Mrs. Nancy Reagan.
Good evening, and welcome to the Chemical People. I'm joining you tonight because I'm concerned about the widespread use of alcohol and drugs by our nation's young people. This problem is far greater than we had reason to believe a few years ago. Today, it's destroying dreams and tearing families apart, and the numbers are terrifying. And behind the numbers are real children and real parents. I'm not an authority on drugs, but I do care about young people, and I don't think we can afford to lose a generation of our young people to chemicals. As we'll learn tonight, kids are becoming acquainted with drugs at a younger and younger age, and that's not a good prescription for growing up.
In the critical adolescent years, as the child rapidly grows into the adult, drug and alcohol abuse can have tragic effects on developing minds and bodies. Tonight, we'll meet some young people who will tell us firsthand about the nightmare of chemical abuse.
I was drinking a whole lot, and there are months that I can't remember.
We'll talk with parents who've had to face the frightening truth of their children's chemical dependency.
I was hurt, I was resentful, I was angry, I was terrified.
We'll see a group of actors dramatize the distress and confusion caused by youthful chemical dependency.
We don't know what to do, or even how to begin.
And we'll hear from experts who will help us understand the nature and scope of the problem.
One word summarizes our drug and alcohol problem: epidemic.
During the next hour, Bill Bixby gives us the facts. Rita Moreno shows us how we deny the facts. Bruce Weitz puts down a pusher. And Michael Landon points to a solution. On tonight's program, The Chemical Society. Every day, the message is the same. If you're feeling bad, take a pill. If you're feeling good, take a drink. And even though not all chemicals are bad, and not all kids are in trouble with drugs and alcohol, we owe it to them to take a better look.
Chemical abuse is everyone's problem. It's part of our lives and our children's lives. We live in a chemical society, a society where taking a drink or a pill to feel better, to relax, to enjoy life is common practice. Our children have acquired that habit, and now they need and deserve our help. If you don't think this chemical society affects you and your family, I'm afraid you're wrong. It does. You're affected even if you don't use drugs. You're affected even if you don't have kids. Chemical abuse affects all of us, and that's what this program is about.
First, the statistics. We look at the numbers that tell us about our children.
Hello, I'm Bill Bixby, and I'm involved in the Chemical People Project because it's time we learn the extent of alcohol and drug abuse among our children and stop denying it has anything to do with us or that we can do anything about it. So to better understand the world in which our children are growing, we have a lot to learn. But how bad is it? To find out, we ask the kids.
I think it's just a way of life more than anything else, drugs and alcohol. It kind of starts when you're little and goes all the way up.
You could be walking down the street, no matter where you're at, and some guy don't know would just come up and ask you, "Do you want to buy drugs?"
You know, just about everyone uses some kind, or they experiment, because it's everywhere. You can get whatever you want.
It's hard, because everywhere you go, it's drugs and chemicals and all this is slapping you in your face all the time.
We're living in a chemical society. That's the straight dope from the kids. They see it every day. And they're growing up with the idea that drugs and alcohol are ordinary. It's everywhere. Everybody does it. It's normal. And we know that kids want to be normal, to be accepted. That's part of growing up too. But if being normal means being high, our kids are in for an awful letdown. Let's take an objective look at how high kids are these days. Drug abuse is an emotional issue, loaded with misinformation and misunderstanding. However, we have the benefit of facts to help our understanding. For 9 years, the National Institute on Drug Abuse and the University of Michigan have surveyed public and private high school seniors nationwide. They found that virtually every one of our 3 million high school seniors have tried drinking. They also discovered that drugs and drinking affect all kids everywhere and at all ages. Alcohol, beer, wine, liquor. Alcohol is the drug of choice for our young people. It's cheap, easy to get, and for many kids, it's the #1 way to party.
It's not a good party if the people don't serve beer or wine or something.
Alcohol, that's the #1. Not everybody, but a lot of kids are doing alcohol.
If someone did bring up the topic of an alcohol-free party or drug-free party, nobody would really come because they would think that it wouldn't be any fun.
Parties and such on the weekends are just for drinking, and if you don't want to drink, the pressure's put on you because you're the one that's out of the norm.
The norm is that 93% of our seniors had tried drinking, and most of them had started drinking 4 or 5 years ago, sometime between their 11th and 14th birthdays, and some even earlier. But how much do they drink? The survey discovered that almost half of our seniors were drunk in the last 2 weeks, and 6% of all high school seniors drink daily. In another survey, the National Institute on Alcohol and Alcoholism estimates there are 3 million problem drinkers under 17. Now, if you think that's not your problem, because it isn't your kid, you're wrong. The same kids who are drinking to get drunk and having the problem are driving on our highways with all of us. And we know that half of all traffic fatalities involve alcohol. Almost 8,000 kids will die in drunk driving accidents this year. That's over 20 of our children who died today. The second most widely abused substance after alcohol is one that adults don't see as much: marijuana.
Most kids just buy it by the joint, it's not really that hard.
People walk up to you in the street and ask you, hey, do you want to buy some marijuana? And, it's like an open thing. And it's really, you almost feel that it's legal if you didn't know better. If you were a stranger coming to this town, you might even think that it was legal because of the way it happens so out in the open.
It's here, and it's used all over the school, during school, after school. You walk around during lunchtime, it's used all the time.
Way back, you didn't really hear about weed that much, marijuana and stuff like that. You didn't really hear about it a while back. But now you really hear about it. It's on TV, it's everywhere.
The kids know what's out there. And our survey confirms that fact. Almost 60%, nearly 1.7 million kids have smoked marijuana by their senior year. And many of these kids first tried it in the 8th or 9th grade. If you thought pot was only smoked years ago by hippies at Woodstock, think again. Marijuana's been around for so many years now, it's almost as accepted as booze by the under 35 crowd. 189,000 seniors smoke grass every day. The problems of drug abuse have been with us for a long time. But today, kids start younger and find more and more to experiment with.
Well, mostly they smoke pot or marijuana, and they sniff coke, they do smack and ludes and all that kind of stuff, pills and all that.
A lot of pot, speed, acid, mainly.
A lot of kids take uppers. Kids who are in sports and stuff, or kids who have a lot of, like term papers and stuff to do.
Aside from marijuana, you can get acid, speed, quaaludes, barbiturates, amphetamines, just about anything you want.
Stimulants, amphetamines, speed, are the most widely abused drugs after marijuana. Almost 1/3 of our seniors have experimented with these chemicals. Sedatives, mainly barbiturates and quaaludes, are next on the list. 15% are experimenting with these potential poisons. That's nearly 500,000 of our senior class. And almost the same number report using tranquilizers, such as Valium, without prescription. The survey indicates another startling fact. 17% of our senior class have used cocaine. And believe it or not, kids still think it's fun to trip on LSD, PCP, or other hallucinogens. 15% have used them. This national survey was most extensive. It covered small cities, large cities, suburbs, rural areas, your area. It's taken each year, so you can't fight the statistics and say your neighborhood or your school is different. All of the surveys basically duplicate these results. Such additional independent surveys have been taken in Pittsburgh, the South, the West, the state of Minnesota. The results vary only slightly. Professional drug authorities in many counties, editors of high school newspapers, college research centers, health centers, police departments, the results are the same.
People often say alcohol and drug problems amongst youth are democratic. It is democratic, but it does not impact all population groups the same. Blacks, Hispanics, Native Indians have a much higher rate of alcohol and drug problems in our community than in other communities. Secondly, many services that are geared to address alcohol and drug problems are not as effective when providing services to minorities as they are to the majority population. And I think finally, minority communities do not have a clear, good understanding of what alcoholism and drug addiction is. As a result, the problem tends to fester longer in our community, becoming more acute and more severe before we seek help. Oftentimes, then, the chances of a successful resolution are diminished.
Primarily in the Hispanic community, drug abuse manifests itself among the youth in a very unique way, in the way that the youth begins to feel that they have to become part of the mainstream of the United States. So what they find is one of the easiest ways is going through drugs or alcohol to become part of the group.
From a national perspective, one word summarizes our drug and alcohol problem: epidemic. If we plot the drug use pattern of those Americans born in the decade of the 20s, the decade of the 30s, the decade of the 40s, the decade of the 50s, against those born between 1960 and 1965, what we find is that by the time those young people born between 1960 and 1965 reached the age of 15, they had more actual drug experiences than the entire group born in the decade of the 20s, the 30s, and 40s will have in their lifetime.
So why do people still deny the facts about drugs and alcohol in their neighborhood? I don't know, but they do. Denial is the biggest problem prevention faces. So this entire program is designed to help counter that. Only then can we expect communities to plan together, to work together, to solve the problem.
Next, we face the wall of denial to overcome prevention's worst enemy.
As you've seen, our children are growing up in a world where drugs are ordinary. Nothing is impossible to get or try. In the past few years, I've done my best to learn as much as I can about youthful drug and alcohol abuse. I visited around the country talking with experts and listening to families. Everywhere I've gone, I've tried to focus attention on the problem, a problem many of us would rather not think about, a problem we'd like to pretend isn't there. I'm a parent too, and I know how difficult it is to face a painful truth about your children. It's much easier to say, this isn't happening, not in my community, not in my family, not my child. We build a wall of denial around the problem. But because we do care so much about our children, it's time for us to stop denying the extent of drug and alcohol abuse and bring it out into the open. If you're not convinced about drugs and denial, let's show you how it works.
It was the weirdest thing. I've never seen Jimmy act like that.
Do you think he was drinking?
He wouldn't do something like that without telling me.
Listen, I've raised a couple kids, and believe me, they're all a little weird when they get into their teens. Don't worry, it'll pass when they get a little older.
I took my keys off him 2 weeks ago when he came in drunk. So what happens? Last night he gets bombed and rams my wife's car into a pole. Kids are gonna be kids, I guess, you know? But hey, it was her fault and I told her so.
My ex was an alcoholic, the worst. Drinking is the last thing my boy would do.
Most kids drink today. It's part of life now.
You're wrong, Henry. It's not part of our kids' lives.
Anyway, I'm changing the sheets on my son's bed. I find a magazine hidden under the mattress. Guess what's in it?
A girly magazine?
Pictures of marijuana. I'll fold out the whole deal. Is he smoking this stuff?
You're overreacting. He's only 12 years old.
I told my Susan, if you want to drink, you do it at home. So I know she's not in on it. That's the generation today.
No. If you're a parent, you've probably heard those lines before. I'm Rita Moreno. You may not realize it, but those were the classic forms of denial by parents. It's their side of the wall of denial. Alcoholism and drug addiction are diseases where denial is a real part of the problem for everyone involved. You can't deny something like chickenpox or measles if your kid has them. But just like a contagious disease, anyone can be exposed to chemical use, so knowing and admitting the problem is a first step to a healthier life. We know that parents often have an especially difficult time. As we just saw, their denial can run from ignorance to wishful thinking that it'll go away. Well, that's natural. Who wants to look for problems? I know my daughter's adolescence has been a white-knuckle time for me. I'm just riding it out. As parents, we must face the facts around us. Whether our kids are chemically dependent or not using any drugs, denial affects every parent in many different ways.
I was naive, and I preferred not to think of it as him having a drug problem, but probably an academic problem.
Knowing that a lot of his friends and a lot of kids out here are doing things, I always thought he'd be smart enough to see how it would affect the body and how it affects people's behavior. And I always hoped he'd be smart enough to not get suckered into it.
I wouldn't allow myself to even think about it. I'd push it out of my mind. When my husband would bring it up, I would become very angry with him.
Drug abuse was something somebody else did. It was I felt it was destructive, but it was something that only a fool could do. And my daughter was bright. She knew better.
We all take part in denial. It's a defense that's not abnormal. We use it to avoid worrying constantly about atom bombs, for example. But also, in the case of a parent who has a child that is loved and cared about, who's gotten involved in this awful-sounding business of drugs, parents use denial too, because we don't want to believe that our kids are so involved, or that they could have done anything that really might damage them, or that might reflect upon our parenthood. So denial is an almost universal defense mechanism.
If it's a drug problem, it's the kind of problem that you really can't deal with as a parent that successfully. If you can attribute it to something else, you believe you have a chance.
You want to trust your children. And I think that's why it took me so long to face up to it. Plus, adolescent behavior in itself is a little strange. So I would chalk a lot of it off to that, you know, just being a teenager. But it reached the point where I couldn't deny it anymore.
I was on the Speakers Bureau as a student for this drug program, and the PTA and advisory council parents would say, well, what do you do when your kid, you know, is under something and you want to know so you could stop it? And I said, clearly ask them. And then, boing, so I had to ask mine, and I did. But it would stick here for a little while.
Well, at that time, I noticed that he looked kind of bad. He looked sleepy in the middle of the day, and he shouldn't have. And so I assumed that he was high, and he was. But at that time, I didn't do a lot about it because, you know, kids do experiment, and I was hoping that it was just a phase, something that he was just trying out, nothing that he would stay with.
But when I found things, I either threw them out
or hid them so that I wouldn't have to say to him, you know, whose are these? Why are these in your room? And we usually got the standard answer anyway, well, I'm holding them for my friend because his parents are on his back. And with that, you kind of let out the sigh of relief, and you're very grateful that they're not his, which is really insane, and this disease affects the entire family as well.
It's a very gradual process from smoking marijuana before school, smoking marijuana after school, to where it becomes a part of their life. And it's like anything, you get lulled into complacency. You don't realize that these little subtle changes are coming about until you look at him and say, hey, this kid's life's out of control.
My daughter's behavior was bizarre. She wasn't sleeping at night. She was hostile. She couldn't speak to anyone without blowing up. Her behavior was so erratic. Nobody knew what was going to come off next. We didn't know whether saying good morning to her was going to cause a major argument. She wasn't eating regularly. She was missing school. All of these things, and all of these things are the symptoms that people tell you, look for drugs. We didn't want to hear drugs.
The parents we've just heard loved their kids all along. They cared, just as you do. They just needed help to learn how to be better parents before the chemicals came home. Once that happened, they learned that if they had kept on denying, the kids could have kept on using. Okay, what about the kids? They seem to know everything about drugs, but they don't. They build their side of the wall of denial with dangerous misinformation and misconceptions.
Nobody ever told me that someone this young could have this problem. I didn't really know. I always thought the drunks were the winos that lived down at the city and did nothing all day but drink, and I just didn't think it could happen to someone like me.
At the beginning, I didn't think I would depend on drugs because I was very into sports. You know, I would always play basketball, and drugs was really just to have a little bit of extra fun to relax myself with.
No, I didn't think that taking drugs was ever going to be a problem for me because everybody I knew took drugs, and it's something that you always think it can't happen to me. It's always going to happen to somebody else, and I can control it.
I didn't think I had a problem. I thought I had a problem, but I didn't think it was with chemicals. I thought that was just totally separate. You know, I just thought I had problems up here.
I used to say to myself and everybody else, well, I didn't get drunk that much. Now I know after being sober a while, I was just drunk the whole time.
I said I was only going to use marijuana, and I did for a few weeks, you know, and then I wasn't satisfied with just marijuana, you know, and I moved up. I started drinking a lot more, you know, whiskey, and I like drinking hard, you know, hard liquor and that, and then I started taking, you know, LSD a lot, and that was my choice chemical. And one thing I said I'd never do, you know, was heroin either, and I started, you know, getting into that a little bit.
We can see that kids' denial is different from adults. They develop, as we just saw, clever ways to avoid facing the issue, to make it seem unimportant or to claim they can handle it. Listen, they don't want to face the painful truth any more than their parents do. But kids can't go swimming without getting wet, and they can't dip into chemicals without some side effects either. In fact, some of the most damaging and long-lasting results of drug and alcohol use for any kid may be psychological. You can't see it easily, but it's there.
It got real bad then because I was drinking a whole lot. And there are months that I can't remember. I don't know what happened in November, December, and January. I just can't remember that, and parts, days, weeks are just gone, and I can't ever get them back.
I always had that philosophy, you know, marijuana isn't addictive. It's medically proven, and I'm okay, this kind of thing. But it's so hard to make people understand, you know, I was a mess upstairs, and I couldn't function.
It was very hard being 9 years old and using drugs and being confused and making stupid decisions and skipping past my childhood.
The drug changes you so much where you're not the same person anymore. The same person you want to be. The drug takes you over. It changes your whole, just the way you think. You don't think the same anymore. It takes you over. It tells you what to do. You don't tell it what to do.
The extent of the tragedy for our young people who are partying, getting high, and drinking has to do with the psychological damage. The damage of young people who never become statistics, but who simply don't grow up as they could or should. They're 18 going on 15, or 23 going on 16 in terms of their emotional, social, and intellectual development. It's not permanent brain damage, but it's young people who don't live up to their full potential, who don't mature as they could or should, because when they should be growing up and learning vital coping skills, instead they're wasting valuable time, valuable years of their life. And instead of learning to cope, they're copping out, and they're not gaining these skills that they so desperately need later on in life.
Next, the physical price. We learn about the damage done and the heavy cost to youth.
There's no easy way to tell who's using chemicals or how much they're using. I'm Bruce Weitz. On Hill Street Blues, I play Detective Mick Belker. On television, things aren't always easy, but in real life, things are even harder. It's tough to know when someone you care about is into drugs and drinking. Sometimes you never know until it's too late. But there are 4 stages of chemical use we can describe: experimental, regular use and misuse, abuse and early dependency, and dependency. In experimental use, the kids learn that the chemicals can change the way you feel, make you feel good. Part of the thrill is getting high with friends and feeling grown up.
I started hanging out with a lot of older kids, and they dealt with drugs and alcohol. And so, you know, I said, "Can I try that?" And they'd say, "No, you're too young, you're too young." And like after I got to know them a little better, they said, "Sure, here, try some, you know."
I was 11 years old when I started using drugs, and I was introduced to them by a girl that was 2 years younger than I was at the time, and we were in a garage, and she said that she had some marijuana, and I didn't even have to think about it, you know. I wanted to be in with her crowd so badly.
Regular use and misuse is characterized by the mistaken attitude that everybody does it. The kid now looks for occasions to get high or intoxicated. He or she may be disappointed if they can't get high. There may be use during the week or at school. He may drop straight friends. Family, school, and legal problems may show up right at this point.
I had like a clique, a crowd, say 5 people. And as I started smoking dope more, our routine was get stoned in the morning, go to school. I refrained from smoking in school most of the time, but we'd get home, we'd go over to so-and-so's house and do bongs, as we called it, you know. And that was just a routine we did every day, morning, noon, night.
Usually when I get up in the morning, I think of school or, you know, playing a game or something like that, you know. But I just started thinking about getting high all the time, you know, and where I was going to get beer from or speed from or reefer, you know.
I dropped most of my normal friends except for a few that lived next door to me, and made a circle around me of using friends that my brother had introduced to me. I started using pot and alcohol and speed, and that was about it for 7th grade.
In early abuse, the kid is developing a strong preoccupation with chemicals and the high. Social use decreases. There is emotional pain. Mistrust of family and teachers and others is deep. Delinquency and truancy are rapidly increasing. There is a great likelihood of overdoses and even periods of going straight to convince himself that there's really no problem at all.
It got to the point where I started stealing, started lying to my parents. I started running away from home. I started messing up in school. I was just losing everything.
Every day I existed just to get high. The day wasn't full if I didn't get high. I couldn't sleep at night if I didn't get high.
I had run away, and I was scared being out on the street all by myself. And I just was young. I didn't know anything about the world, and I stopped eating just to do drugs.
independency, the kid now must use the chemicals merely to bring himself out of the emotional and physical pain caused by the absence of the drugs. It's difficult to face the day without chemicals. Physical deterioration is apparent, such as weight loss or gain, nervousness, and frequent illness. Suicidal gestures, lying, and paranoia become everyday behavior.
It got to the point where it was so bad that I would do anything to get drugs. Whether I stole off my family, or rob people, or set people up, because I needed it. You know, I couldn't start my day without it.
When I was 12 years old, I started prostituting in the streets of Chicago. I thought I did real good. There was a man I knew who gave me, or explained to me, that there were 3 choices that had to be made in order for me to support my growing habit, because I needed more drugs at that time. I could hook, I could deal, or I could steal. And I chose to hook.
I had planned on running away, and I had planned suicide and all this stuff. And in the car, I had had a .30-30, a rifle. And then I just took off, and there was a place where I used to get high a lot. It's out in the country, basically, where there's nothing out there. I sat in front of the gun. It was loaded and ready to go. I just sat in front of that for about 45 minutes.
I've gone to a certain point of freaking out on it, wanting to kill myself. I want to die. I blame the whole world for me being that way. And I've been under the influence where I don't know where I'm at. I hurt myself. I try to kill myself, and I don't know that I'm doing that to myself, because the drug is doing it to me. My mind just wanders off. I'm dead for a moment at a time, but my body's moving. I'm really self-destructive on it.
We've seen who may be into chemicals and some of the ways kids can get into them. Now let's find out more about the powers of the most popular chemicals.
Hey, catch the reefer?
Here's somebody who
Here you go,
thinks he's
baby.
an expert.
You enjoy that? Hey, gather round, the Magic Man's in town. Now, just slide on up with the cash and sample my stash. I know you all be partying tonight at the Sammy's Suicide Concert. And now, if you dudes want to rate with your dates, don't be caught without a beverage. Yeah, because the ladies won't fly with a dude that's dry. Now, I got some Mad Dog here that'll make you feel like you're in the front row all night long. And for those of you who don't go ape over the grape, I got a Cola Fola, Cold Gold. I got Pale Ale. I got True Brew. Hey, without the suds, you're all duds.
Bill, I think you gotta tell him everything about that stuff you're waving around there. You know, like how alcohol is classified as a depressant, just like barbiturates. Like how it attacks the central nervous system and even interferes with their brain signals.
Yeah, like you're doing to mine.
Why don't you tell them about the damage heavy drinking does to their circulation and respiratory systems?
Hey, a little heavy breathing never hurt anybody.
Oh, yeah. But what about the danger of lapsing into a coma?
Oh, all right,
Because
yeah.
that's what happens when you pass out, Bill. Didn't you know that? You know, most kids lose their direction and their health when they get into heavy drinking. Why don't you mention the kids who were killed in drunk driving accidents last year? They lost their lives.
Hey, you want to lose something, babies? Lose yourselves with some of this fine reefer. Now, this ain't no ordinary herb, Jack. I got cents a million from the Golden State. All weed, no seed. Now, who's hot for some super pot?
Just a minute, Bill. I think you're forgetting some of the features of that marijuana, like how pot smoking affects their driving, or what they do at school, or what they do at work. Not to mention their relationship with family and friends until they don't care about anything, or anyone. Why don't we level with your customers? You know, truth in advertising. Darling, when you smoke this joint, the active ingredient in the pot, that's THC, accumulates in the fatty tissues of the body, like the brain and the reproductive organs. It builds up, even if you just smoke one joint a week. And long after you're done with that joint, the THC is still working a number on you.
Don't listen to this dude. He's just out to spoil your party. Now, check these out. Black Beauties. Hey, everybody's favorite lift.
Excuse me, Bill. What are these, Black Beauties, Bennies, Speed? These are stimulants, amphetamines. These will get them up for almost anything, huh?
Hey, I couldn't have said that better myself. Hey, now, just the thing for those all-nighters when it's exam time.
Well, you're not doing too well on your exam. You haven't told these people what they have to look forward to when the joyride's over and they crash. You forgot to mention the physical exhaustion, the disorientation, the depression.
Hey, give me a break, Marcus Welby.
Now, you give them a break, Bill. You gotta let these people in on how the abuse of these stimulants can result in hallucinations and convulsions, and maybe even death. You ask them if they're up for that, Bill.
Hey, come on now. Cocaine running all around my brain.
Bill, there's plenty of people who would kill for the white powder in that vial you're holding. And plenty of people would die for it, too. The symptoms range from high blood pressure, which is a killer in itself, and psychosis, to severe depression and suicidal tendencies.
Hey, but it's the Cadillac. It's the ultimate good time.
Tell them how much it's gonna cost them, Bill. What is it, an hour or so high for $100, plus the possibility of 10 years to life in most states? As you can see, it's a real crowd pleaser.
Hey, hold on. I got just the thing. Ludes, the love drug. Hey, this the ladies cannot resist.
What do we have here? Quaaludes? Classified as a sedative, a barbiturate, a tranquilizer?
Yeah, great for mellowing you and your lady out.
Great if you want to slur your words and fall down a lot, too.
I give up.
Those tiny terrors will weaken your breathing, slow your pulse, and put you to sleep behind the wheel. They'll turn your skin cold and clammy, maybe even put you into a coma. Plus, they're extremely addictive.
Plus, they're extremely addictive.
That's right, both physically and psychologically, and they're particularly lethal when taken with alcohol. That's what I call really bringing somebody down, Bill.
Hey, man, stick around. Don't listen to this. Hey, I got reds. I got yellow jackets. I got anything you need. Come on, don't listen to this stuff.
I don't understand it, Bill. I thought you had them all the way. Do your kids rely on the local Magic Bill for their information on drinking and drugs? Experts now have new evidence that chemicals can be even more harmful to young people than adults. Make sure your kids have the facts.
I'm all ready to start.
There is no doubt that drug and alcohol abuse causes physical damage, especially in young bodies. Today, high-technology equipment, such as the CAT scan, makes it possible for the medical specialist to see damage inside the body at virtually any point. With the computer-controlled device, the physician can detect the damage done and measure the effects.
When we're evaluating the changes that may occur in the brain from chronic alcoholism, we wish to evaluate the size of the fluid-filled spaces deeply within the brain and also over the surface of the brain. For example, in this normal patient, we can see that the deep fluid-filled spaces, called the ventricles, are of normal size, as are the slit-like spaces over the surface of the brain between the convolutions of the brain. In contradistinction is this abnormal scan, in which the ventricles are markedly enlarged, as are the sulci, or spaces, over the surface of the brain. All of these findings are indicative of a rather dramatic loss of volume of the brain, alcoholism being but one cause. Such loss of volume and substance of the brain can result in many kinds of problems to the particular patient. The most dramatic that we see is the loss of intellectual function.
It takes far less of a chemical to affect a young person and less time. Heavy use of alcohol can lead to addiction in a much shorter period than in an adult, months rather than years. And harm done during the critical growing years has long-term effects. Damage done to the vital organs and sensitive developing systems, like the reproductive system, will show up later in life with serious and sometimes irreversible consequences. Marijuana is the other major substance that young people abuse.
The first system of the body affected by marijuana, obviously, is where the smoke goes to first, the lungs. In the lungs, we have a group of cells. They're specialized cells. Their goal is to intercept bacteria and environmental pollutants coming into the body. These cells are immobilized by marijuana smoke. We also change certain of the physical conditions of the lungs, lung irritants. We then go to the cardiovascular system. The cardiovascular system is stressed throughout the system by marijuana. We then move within the system to the brain. When the person starts getting high, chemical changes occur in the brain. These chemical changes are manifested in impaired judgment. impaired learning, a decrease in certain types of sleep patterns, memory loss, short-term memory loss, which translates in many cases to long-term memory loss.
Recent studies on the effects of marijuana have shown permanent change in brain function and structure. The research has shown striking changes at the synapse, the junction where messages are transmitted from one brain cell to another. Under the microscope, we see that heavy marijuana use produces a widening of the junction and causes deposits of various materials. Both effects are associated with brain damage.
So, sum total, drugs by definition have side effects. The side effects are more pronounced the younger the individual or organism. The bottom line, you pay the price. The younger, the steeper the price.
Next, blame and excuse, when we can't deny the problem anymore, but find all the wrong answers.
Growing up is hard, but being a parent isn't any easier. It's one of life's great challenges for which we have no formal training. But there's no job with greater rewards than that of being a good parent. When my children were growing up in the turbulent 60s, I often wondered if I was doing everything possible to listen to their concerns and understand their problems. We all want to give our children the very best and protect them from harm. I know that few things in my life have frightened me as much as this drug epidemic. I'm scared to death for our children. Drug abuse doesn't solve problems, it makes problems. It destroys lives. I've seen how drugs tear families apart, and I'm afraid there's no easy solution. Even after a family admits that drugs are present, the problem isn't over. Breaking down the wall of denial isn't that simple. It's human nature to look for easy answers, for someone to blame, or to make excuses.
Look, I love him as much as you do, probably more. I just don't have time to watch over him like a hawk. He's not a bad kid. I know that much. He can take care of himself. I can't be constantly worrying about whether or not he has a few beers. Hey, Mark, if he had a problem with drinking or anything else, he'd come to me with it. He knows I'm here for him anytime. I don't want to hear what you do. I'm one woman trying to make it in the world. If he's going to drink or whatever, well, hey, that's all part of growing up. What do you want me to do? Lock him in the house?
I can't figure it out. When is that kid gonna come down out of the cockpit?
I'm scared, Al. She's come home like this a dozen times this month. What is she doing to herself?
Well, I know what I'm doing. I'm going over to that school tomorrow and raise some hell. Those teachers know what's going on with the booze and the pot parties. They just turn their heads. Well, I'll turn a few heads.
Al, what good does getting mad at the school do? It's those friends she runs with.
If I have to yank her out of that school, I will. Away from those do-nothing teachers and those bums she loafs with.
She never acted like this before.
Hell, if it ever gets out of hand, I'll be the first to know, believe me. And I'll be the one to handle it, not some head shrinker or community do-gooder. Yeah, I got the kid out of a jam more times than I can remember. One thing he doesn't need is a record.
We see a great deal of blaming and excusing around chemical dependence. Part of this is probably a hangover from our feeling that drug dependence and alcohol use to the point of dependence may be a moral rather than a health issue. And we don't want to acknowledge that the individual may be in the throes of this. We try to blame society, we try to blame specific events in the life of an individual, we try to excuse the conduct because of stresses or various external factors. All of these things get in the way of acknowledging the problem and bringing direct help to the individual who's chemically dependent.
I thought a
A lot of it was teenage rebellion. I knew that there was some problems because of the divorce that had taken place, and this child of mine has always tended to be a little more quiet, a little more of a loner. She's always had a little more trouble making friends. And I guess I thought it was probably as much typical teenage problems as anything else.
The immediate reaction is to what were we or what are we doing wrong as parents? You know, we had a lot of soul searching, I think, ourselves to look at, you know, what was parenting all about and were we doing it in the proper fashion and what we were doing right and what were we doing wrong, so to speak.
It makes you feel like you're failing. You blame each other, each parent, you know. You blame, the husband blames the wife blames the husband, you know. Who in our family could this be like? It's not like our side of the family. It's something you did wrong. You certainly were inadequate in some way that this happened to be this way. You know, what really is must be our fault. And so because you're arguing back and forth about that and he's still not doing anything better, it makes the whole family situation really sick.
I blame myself for the way he was acting. I said, gee, I created this kid, you know, because of the fact, and you go back, and I kept remembering, and I did a lot of crying. And
I guess I feel that sometimes we could have loved them more.
yeah, it's very painful to,
I wish I had done things, you know, differently. And maybe that's why we weep.
I think so.
For the things that we didn't do.
And with all the group therapy, etc., and there's still a lot of guilt on my part, where if I'd have done things different, would he have been different?
Next, finding an answer. We learn that after denial, there is hope in community action.
I'm Michael Landon, and I'm here because I know very well how we can kid ourselves about the truth of this problem. Even after we accept that there is a problem, we often look for someone to pin the blame on. Well, I think it's time to stop playing the blame game, for our kids' sake. Even though it's normal to look for a scapegoat, it can't help make things better. Blaming the schools, police, or society won't keep the hurt from coming home, and just might delay the healing. Now, facing the facts is tough for anyone. It's especially hard for families because it doesn't feel good to think you've failed the ones you love. But just as families have a hard time accepting painful truths, so do communities. And they play the same games. Not here, not our kids. No way. Because they feel frustrated and helpless, they point fingers of blame and hope the problem will go away. In another dramatic scene, let's take a look at our community in action.
Here's one from Washington, the suburbs.
All right, could I have your attention, please? Please. I guess the drug abuse problem isn't going to go away. You know, a few of us tried to organize a few years ago, but nothing much came of it. I have a teenager and a 12-year-old daughter, and I want to find some answers too, but I have to wonder, realistically, what can we do?
Sure, we have a problem, but it's not as bad as it is over in Riverside.
We have good kids around here. I think we can handle what little problems we do have, if any.
You'd better believe that you have a problem here. Now, just because some drunken kid hasn't killed himself driving or OD'd yet, doesn't mean you don't have a problem here.
It seems to me if you were doing your job, there wouldn't be any problem.
Oh, really? Well, Charlie, do you know there are parents right here in this room whose kids I brought home, either drunk or stoned out? Now, what should I do the next time? Arrest them? Lock them up? Is that what you want? Well?
I think the right thing is to clean up the schools, because that's where the problem is.
I do what I can to keep my school clean.
Forget it, it's not enough.
Don't blame us for all this. We're trying. But schools don't have problems. Kids do.
They're in school.
The kids bring this stuff to school with them.
The kids are different. The school is different. Believe me, things are not the same as when you and I were their age. Now, I care about kids, but our drug problem is not getting better. It's getting worse.
Kids care too, you know. We don't like seeing other kids burning out.
A lot of us don't want to drink or do drugs, but we seem weird if we don't.
And kids can buy beer from almost anywhere.
Wait a minute. Kids come to my store with phony IDs. I catch the ones that look too young, but what can I do?
I simply don't understand you people. These are our kids. You make them sound like criminals or addicts.
5 years ago,
when your kids...
Our children are growing up fast in a changing world. It all comes down to personal values. We try, but it's usually not enough. We have to take more time to care.
I care, but all this talk... I know of a family... My family. My boy's drinking. Sometimes we fight so much I think I'm going to go out of my mind. I'm a single mother. I have to work. I can't be there all the time. I need some help. Now.
That group of people doesn't know it yet, but they're on their way to becoming a community. Now, they're going through all the stages of denial. It's not a problem. Not here, not my kid. It's a problem, but no one can do anything. And finally, something has to be done, but I can't do it. But that's where they're wrong. Something can be done, and they can do it. If they'd stop blaming each other, they could come together as a real community and make a difference. Even one person can make a difference. And next week, we're going to learn how. We're going to follow our group as it learns how to come together, and we are going to meet other real people from all over the country who have already begun to affect their local communities.
You can't ignore it. You can't stick your head in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist. The only way you're going to accomplish what you set out to do in any problem, I feel, is you have to make people aware there's a problem in the first place.
It's more or less like a grief process. People don't want to face the situation. And I could tell from talking to parents about it, they would say, oh, yes, it's quite a problem. But you could tell they thought, but it's not my problem.
I decided that something had to be done. And I had contacts with other people who had been through some of the same things that I had been through. I knew the feeling.
It's a problem that has to be attacked on a community-wide basis. And you have to draw together all the resource people, all the service organizations, and the institutions. And with that broad range of resource and the perspectives that come to it, we can resolve the problem better than we are doing now.
And I definitely feel that the awareness among our parents is very, very much greater. I feel that we began on a level, well, yes, it's out there, but my children aren't involved, and well, I don't think it's in our schools, but now they know it is, and it's available, and it's there, and it's a real problem, and something that we are dealing with. We aren't just ignoring it anymore.
We're confronted with an urgent community problem that crosses all boundaries, rich and poor, educated and uneducated, black, white, brown. No one is immune. But there is hope. Tonight, with the chemical people, we're beginning a national citizens' effort to organize the fight against drug abuse, to bring together the various groups and people involved in the problem. We're doing this in the best American tradition, coming together in town meetings all across the country. In fact, you may be watching this program from your local community center or school. In a few moments, you'll begin discussing the problem in your area and the action that your community can take to solve it. If you're not at a town meeting now, I urge you to find one or start one in your community and be with us for the second program this next week. Chemical abuse is a huge problem that can confuse us. But there are ways to find solutions if we break the problem down to a manageable size and work together. Don't leave your meeting tonight before you agree to meet next week and get organized. We'll be back then to examine some things that have worked in communities which have already organized around the country. And we'll see that kids really do respond when they learn there's more to life than an easy high. I hope that you'll join us again for that special hour here on your PBS station. Until then, get involved. It can make a very great difference.
This program was made possible by grants from Richard King Mellon Foundation and Metropolitan Life Foundation.
To obtain copies of this program or of the Chemical People book, which contains much valuable information, including a transcript of this program, write MTI, Box 1231, that's 1231, Northbrook, Illinois, 60062.